We're going to talk, we have the Republican leader of the Education and Labor Committee here, and I'm going to introduce her in just a moment to talk about minimum wage. But first, I wanted to talk about what's gone on over the last few days. I want to make absolutely clear that our opposition to our socialist colleagues has absolutely nothing to do with their gender, with their religion, or with their race. It has to do with the content of their policies. They're wrong when they attempt to impose the fraud of socialism on the American people. They're wrong when they pursue policies that would steal power from the American people and give that power to the government. They're wrong when they espouse and enable, and their leadership refuses to condemn, vile anti-Semitism. They're wrong when they rush to blame America first, when they fail to recognize that this is the greatest nation that has ever existed, the exceptional nation. And they're wrong when they fail to recognize that no people has ever lived in greater freedom. And then they go on and fail to provide the resources our men and women in uniform need to defend that freedom. Our colleagues, our socialist colleagues on the other side of the aisle, are wrong when they advocate abortion up until the moment of birth, including partial birth abortion, late-term abortion, and when they refuse to mandate care for babies who are born alive. Our colleagues are wrong when they say that we should open America's borders, abolish ICE, and abolish DHS. They're wrong when they advocate policies that would eliminate all private health insurance in this country, destroy Medicare, and force the American people to pay for free health care for illegal immigrants. They're wrong when they pursue policies like the one we're going to be voting on today that will destroy 4 million jobs for low-wage earners by mandating a federal $15 minimum wage. That is not compassion. That's a callousness that's born of ignorance. They're wrong when they say that their programs help people at the lower end of the economic spectrum. Every one of their socialist programs would create massive new government dependency and end the very economic growth we need to ensure everyone can prosper. Our colleagues are wrong when they advocate packing the Supreme Court and abolishing the Electoral College. And our colleagues are wrong when they tell Americans, as Congresswoman Presley did just last weekend, that any individual seat at the table is only valuable, only legitimate, if that person espouses some pre-approved set of beliefs deemed appropriate based on their religion or their gender or their race. When they say that, that is racist. So, no, our opposition to our colleagues' beliefs has absolutely nothing to do with race or gender or religion. We oppose them and their policies because their policies are dangerous and wrong and would destroy America. The issue here is the content of their policies, and we will continue to stand up and fight against what we know is wrong for this nation. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Congresswoman Fox, who's the Republican leader of the Education and Labor Committee.
Thanks, Chair Cheney. Thank you very much. We are going to be voting today on a very, very bad piece of legislation, H.R. 582, which more than doubles the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour by 2024. This is a radical and unprecedented mandate. Over its 80-year history, the average federal minimum wage has been $7.40 an hour, with a median of $7.33, both just slightly higher than the current federal standard of $7.25. The claim that the federal minimum wage has never been lower just doesn't hold water. In fact, only 2.3% of hourly workers are paid at or below the minimum wage currently. And of that 2.3%, half are below the age of 25. These are individuals at the start of their careers or filling part-time or summer jobs. Last week, CBO issued a detailed study which estimates that almost 3.7 million jobs would be lost from a $15 minimum wage, with a median impact of 1.3 million jobs lost. That same CBO report also estimates that a $15 federal minimum wage would lift 1.3 million individuals out of poverty. So if we do the math, H.R. 582 would cause at least one job to be lost for every person who moved out of poverty. And in the worst case scenario, as many as 3 jobs would be lost. This is not a trade-off that Congress should ask the American people to make. 46% of those losing their jobs would be young workers, 38% would be workers with less than a high school diploma. The bill hits families and businesses hard to pay for the artificial wages. This bill mandates job creators are forced to reduce workers' hours, eliminate jobs, increase automation, or close their doors for good. The CBO backs this up, saying there would be a net reduction in family income by 2025 of $9 billion, resulting from a $15 minimum wage. In other words, the so-called raise would reduce pay for many American families. Ironically, this bill comes at a time when wages are on the rise, with 7.4 million jobs nationwide and unemployment near a 50-year low. Job creators know they must offer competitive wages and benefits to attract and retain workers. Instead of considering this job-killing, income-reducing bill, we should advance legislation that empowers communities, creates opportunities, and opens doors for all workers and families. It's bad legislation, should not pass. I now recognize Whip Scalise.
Thank you, Virginia, and I appreciate your leadership as you continue to fight for American workers and you look at what we've done to actually work with the president to lower taxes, which has resulted in the best economy we've seen in generations. In fact, hardworking families are seeing more money in their paychecks, wages are up, you're seeing more opportunities for people to enter the middle class, which had been evaporating after years of a declining economy. The opposite's happening now. There's more opportunity than we've ever seen. There are more job openings than there are people looking for work. And at that time, you would think the Democrats would want to be working with us to build on that economic success, and instead you see Speaker Pelosi bringing this bill to the floor that would eviscerate millions of American jobs. The CBO report on the minimum wage bill shows that there would be up to 3.7 million jobs lost. That's literally the entire state of Oklahoma. That's how many jobs would be lost under this bill. And you don't need to just look at the CBO score to wonder how bad it would be. You can just go look and see what happened in the city of Seattle. In Seattle, they actually did this back in 2014. They increased their minimum wage to $15. And then the University of Washington, after 3 years of actual data, seeing what really happened in Seattle, the University of Washington did a study to see how this worked. And let me tell you, it was devastating for families in Seattle. And the most devastated were low-income families. It showed that there were millions of work hours lost, gone away. So even if you had a higher wage, you were working less time, so you saw your income drop. This was devastating to low-income families by a 3-to-1 margin. That's how bad it was in Seattle, knowing what's happened. You saw the mayor of Baltimore veto a minimum wage increase that's similar to the one being brought to the floor because she noted how devastating it would be for workers in Baltimore, a Democrat mayor, by the way. So as Pelosi has seen how devastating that would be and what the CBO score shows it would do to hardworking families in America, she should be working with us to help improve the lives of hardworking families instead of bringing bills that would devastate their income levels. And then, of course, you're seeing what they're bringing to the floor today. One more attempt to personally attack President Trump instead of focusing on things that can actually get this economy going. Just yesterday, here at this very microphone, you saw some of my colleagues say false and misleading things from this microphone. You see Omar continue to use terms like people drinking out of toilets. It's not happening in any of those detention facilities. She voted, by the way, against the very funding to help our government provide humanitarian relief for those families that are coming across the border illegally. Our Border Patrol agents were buying diapers with their own money because they had run out of money, and she voted against that very funding. And they continue to call for impeachment. Presley would not even refer to the president by the title. Look, we disagreed with Barack Obama on a lot of things that he did, the policies. as our conference chair laid out, there are a lot of policies that we had disagreements on with Speaker Pelosi and her Socialist Democrats, just like we had disagreements with a lot of Barack Obama's policies, but we never disrespected the office. I called him President of the United States, as we all did. If he asked us to go meet with him at the White House, we went. We expressed our disagreements in a respectful way, but what they continue to do to go after him personally, to call for impeachment of the president from day one, the night they won the majority, they weren't even in office. They didn't even have the Mueller report that they thought would show collusion, which it did not. And yet they still want to keep going down that road instead of working with us to improve the daily lives of hardworking families. With that, now I'll bring up the Republican leader of our conference, Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This new Democrat Socialist majority continues on their quest to destroy and erode the gains that we have made since the last election when it came to financial growth inside America. Here's a snapshot of the current economic conditions. Just last month, there were 224,000 jobs added to the U.S. economy. That was surpassing all expectations. We're at a near 50-year low unemployment. For 16 months, the unemployment rate has been at or below 4%. And since January 2017, 5.6 million jobs have been created through the help of not only the tax cut, but the deregulation and the pro-growth policies that we've been able to move forward. Instead of building on this incredible economic boom, Democrats are set to try to sabotage it. If you look at the own CBO numbers, which others have mentioned, it could result in the loss of 3.7 million jobs. If you read further into the Congressional Budget Office, it talks about who we're actually trying to help. It hurts the worst. Those of lower income could actually have their income lowered or the loss of job. We've found that in history that those states have done this. We have our even members and colleagues that we serve with, just in their last job, the location that they have worked at has shuttered their doors simply because of a minimum wage increase. It's not just my words. Listen to this. From Alan B. Kruger, this is the former chairman of President Obama's Council on Economic Advisors. He warns a 15-hour national minimum wage would put us in uncharted waters and risk undesirable and unintended consequences. In a time where we have so many other challenges, in a time where we want to raise individuals to continue the growth of what we're having, the Democrats continue to play stunts, and they're political stunts at that. We've got a concern when we've got to have a budget agreement. I think we've made progress, even in the last couple days, something that we need to focus on. We have a debt ceiling that could hit before we're back in September. We've got to make sure we get that done. Those are the things that we should be focused on. We have a challenge and a crisis at the border. We know the challenge and crisis can only be solved if Congress acted. We have a speaker that requested from the president to postpone any type of movement from individuals who had a court order to leave the country. He did, with the hope that Congress would act, and not one thing was taken up during that time frame. But today we'll spend more time on the floor dealing with politics. I think the American public expect more of us. They expect us to actually solve the problems. We know no one person gets 100% of what they want. Our government is designed to find compromise. And I will tell you, from the Republican side of the aisle, we can work with anybody that wants to put America first and be able to work towards that. We have found that just in the last week, the National Defense Authorization Act, for the first time in 58 years, this new Socialist Democrat majority couldn't even put troops first. They had to put politics first. We watched at the supplemental on the border. And what's most concerning is the Senate has done what is right. They found bipartisanship when it came to the supplemental vote and also when it came to the NDAA. 84 was the vote on the supplemental, 86. Leaders of both sides of the aisle were able to vote for it. Not in this body. It has changed. This is no longer the Democratic Party. This has become the Socialist Democratic Party. With that, I'll take questions. Yes, ma'am.
You've been here for several Congresses with both parties in the majority. President Trump has said with this new asylum rule that he has taken matters into his own hands because Congress can't pass comprehensive immigration. Why has Congress been unable to pass comprehensive immigration?
Well, we tried a number of different Congresses. Last Congress we tried, and we brought two different bills to the floor. The real challenge was the other side of the aisle made sure that no one voted for it. I always believe that you're going to have a process in the House and a process in the Senate. And there was ability to find compromise on both sides. Unfortunately, I think there is a belief on the other side of the aisle that they want to keep the issue out there. Now, everybody wants to be able to protect somebody who really has a challenge when it comes to asylum. But what is happening today is individuals are coming from other countries, passing 1, 2, 3 other countries and never claiming asylum. We found through our own court system. Because when you come here and you claim asylum, you do get to be able to have your day in court. 80% of those do not hold up. There's other ways to deal with it. In the Obama administration, in one moment they had, where you could claim asylum in your own country, in the consulate itself, and if your court case came forward, then you could come to America. We want to make sure we protect those who truly need it. But this is a system that has created a loophole that actually puts it in doubt of protecting those who need it in a time, and we should act. I watched the Speaker ask the President to hold off on an action that the court has asked this country to take. He did. But nothing happened inside Congress. The responsibility lies with us. ICE and Border Patrol can't do something different than what the law says. They have to uphold the law. We should make sure that we fix this problem because we do have a crisis. Yes.
Mr. Leader, were the president's tweets that said "go back" racist? Yes or no?
No. And I do not believe the Speaker of the House was racist last week either when those individuals on her side of the aisle who are claiming the president is racist, when they claimed she was racist either. I do not believe that. I believe this is about ideology. This is about socialism versus freedom. And it's very clear what the debate is happening. I understand when I listened to their press conference yesterday, they talked more about impeachment than anything else. Even one of those individuals, this wasn't the first time they talked about impeachment. On the night of being sworn in, they brought all their supporters together, and they spoke about impeachment in words that I will not use here. This is more from their basis about politics, and it's unfortunate. We should get back to the business of America.
Do you
Yes.
expect
Mr.
better
McCarthy,
from
and
the
I'd like to
president?
hear from both you and Mr. Scalise, going back to a couple things you said.
Sure.
You've said that this is politics.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Scalise, you said that this is one more chance to go after the president here. When you have a resolution like this on the floor today, though, your
I will vote
members-
against this resolution if you
And
ask
you're
me.
going to encourage your members to vote against that resolution?
Yeah, it's all politics. If you look at the resolution itself and you look at the rules of the House, you can't even name the resolution on the floor. If this is the case of what they are concerned most about, let's go through every comment individuals who have made on the other side of the aisle. Are we bringing a resolution up on the floor about their comments? No. When they question a person's faith, where they can actually believe if somebody of the Jewish faith could support America, or do they have to support Israel? When the questions and comments individuals have made, and that's why this body should be better than this. The individuals that you continue to play politics with, let's solve the problems that are before us.
But this is the root of my question here, though.
Yes.
There is a perception, whether it be right or not, that the Republican Party and members have not sufficiently rejected what the president said. You say that these comments are not racist.
I think the
That's it.
president clarified
But
that.
that's it. Even if it is the situation that those comments are over the line, even if you don't believe it, isn't a problem with the optic for the party that members are going to vote today on your side of the aisle to support the president and what he said about
I
these
think this
four
party has been very clear. We are the party of Lincoln. This party believes in the content of the individual. I've watched from our own actions. I've watched an individual in my own party do something that we disagreed with. We took action. I've watched the other side of the aisle, though, when it came to questioning a person's faith, a person's loyalty to America and other, that no action was taken. I've watched what was written in a resolution using words that you can't even use on the floor. I've watched a press conference that only talked about impeachment. I've watched a chairman of the Judiciary Committee that handles impeachment use as their platform to win the chairmanship that he would be better to impeach the president. Long before a Mueller report ever came through and said no collusion or others. Let's not be false about what is happening here today. This is all about politics and beliefs of ideologies of what individuals have. Yes, sir.
Do you think that there are decent chances of getting an agreement on the caps and the debt limit before the recess? And if there's not a caps agreement, do you want to ask your members to vote for a clean debt limit this month?
I do think that we can get this done. And I would say to the Speaker, If we are as close as I believe we are and we need a day or two longer, we should stay here and make sure we get it done. There is a real concern, and I don't think this is a question on any side of the aisle, that when the debt ceiling can hit, that it could hit early September or maybe sooner. We should not leave for August without dealing with that. And I would say if we can't get this done, we should do it 30 days. I don't think that's ideal. I'd rather get a cap agreement and a debt ceiling agreement before we leave in July. And I think we are very close to making that happen.
Mr. Leader,
Yes, last question.
do you agree with President Trump that former Speaker Ryan was weak, ineffective, and stupid as leader?
Look, I think Speaker Ryan worked very hard. I think he was a good speaker, and he was a great speaker. Speaker Ryan is a very good friend of mine. I've watched what he's been able to achieve. I've watched what he's been able to achieve with this president. Tax reform that has not been done in 30 years. All those statistics, as I did laid off for you in the economics of where it was a team that was built. I've watched what you're quoting something based upon a book that I have not read, and then I had talking to the Speaker Ryan. I know that's not the words of what he would use because I've been in rooms with him and with the president. These are two individuals that work very well together. I know that someone can take a language out. In there they talk about Mr. Ryan talking about the president coming from business. That's exactly what America needed. A president who could come in and shake up Washington. Speaker Ryan was perfect in the job where he was at, the knowledge of what he had, and that combination together would make sure in this Congress that we got tax reform done. Because remember this, Article 1, Section 7, tax reform doesn't start in the Senate, it starts in the House. And without Speaker Ryan and without President Trump, it never would have gotten done. Thank
Mr. you. Leader, on socialism, a question?
One day at a time.